Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sumner, also known as Sum the Bookworm, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my 5-star reads of 2026 so far. I have read 60 books this year so far, and it is almost the end of July when I am filming this, and only 9 of those books have been 5-star reads for me. Just to give you some context as to like how I rate my books, if it's a 5-star read, that means that like it either drove me to tears, I thought it was really good, I had no notes about it, like it was like a really good book. I don't just hand out 5-star reads to anything. I like have to really love the book. I'm like cannot leave my brain at all for me to give it 5 stars. So that's just like a little bit of context regarding like how I give out 5 stars. I also don't only read romance and fantasy. I give out 5 stars to nonfiction books, fiction books, romance, fantasy, historical fiction. Like I read everything, therefore I rate everything. So this list includes some nonfiction and also a lot of fiction. Starting off with the books that I read starting at the beginning of the year until now, that's how we're gonna do this, is books I started with and then where I'm at now with my last 5-star read. My first 5-star of the year was Be Ready When the Luck Happens by Ina Garten. I listened to this on audio and she ends up reading it to you, which is really cool. I loved this book. It was like sitting down with an aunt and listening to her tell her whole story of how she basically went from like being a nobody to being on the Food Network. So that was a really cool story just to hear. She talks about like the struggles that her and her husband faced. She talks about running a business, moving her, like her and her husband having to do long distance for a little while she's running her store up in the Hamptons, business decisions that she made, business decision mistakes that she made, just different things like that, how they traveled in the early years of their marriage with like $100 or something. It was crazy. Like the budget that they had was insane for them to go and travel like this. It was just a really cool story. So if you're a fan of the Food Network or of the show Barefoot Contessa, I would highly recommend picking up her book because it was just such a cool story. And like I said, it was like sitting down and listening to like the cool fun aunt who like goes and travels the world and can tell you all about like different wines and cheeses. Like it was just so cool to hear her story. My second 5-star read of the year was Becoming by Michelle Obama. I was 8 years old when Obama first went into office, so I don't really know, let me rephrase. I didn't know very much about his administration because I was literally a little kid. I knew that there was a lot of controversy around it. I knew that there was a lot of celebration around it. But other than that, I didn't know anything about what happened in his administration. I loved listening to this. Michelle also reads it to you, and not that she's gonna see this, but if she ever does see this, she should be an audiobook narrator because it was such a pleasant experience just like hearing her read her story. Basically, she walks you through her whole life story from the time that she was a little kid growing up in Chicago all the way through the end of Barack's presidency. How they met, their relationship. She talks about going to law school. She talks about like getting out of the neighborhood that she was in, but also like going back and like contributing to the neighborhood and just her education. Like all of it was just so cool. She talks about her struggle with infertility. I adore the Obamas. I adore their marriage. I adore their relationship. I love them. I just think that they're so cute and they just are so cool. Like knowing what I know now about him as a person, I have so much respect for him and like what he experienced in his presidency. I have so much respect for her because she didn't actually want him to be president, but she supported him anyways. If you haven't picked this up, you just totally should because it was just a really cool book to read and I loved it. Preface, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so a lot of these were on audio. My third 5-star read is The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. I have never physically read a book by her, so I will probably just continue to listen to all of her books on audio because I don't own any of them. I listen to all of them through Libby. I loved The Night We Met. It was so good. I think it's my new favorite of hers. Some people didn't like it. I really liked it. It was closed door. It wasn't super spicy. Basically, The girl in the story is dating Mike. Mike is best friends with Chris. Chris starts to fall for his best friend's girlfriend, but he obviously can't do anything. And so a bunch of stuff happens, and him and the girlfriend end up creating a really beautiful friendship, and they become really good friends. While Mike is also calling on Chris for help to help take care of his girlfriend and to go pick her up from the airport and do the things that Mike isn't able to do because Mike has some serious problems. So that's all I'm going to say about it. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I know not everybody did, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the friendship that developed. I loved the relationship. I loved the world. And I'm so excited because she's going to be releasing Mike's book next year. And I think we're going to finally have some redeeming things for him. I'm really excited to see like what she does with this story. If you've been eyeing it but you haven't picked it up yet, I would definitely recommend picking it up. My fourth 5-star read of the year is Mailman by Stephen, starring Grant. He is literally a mail carrier who wrote a memoir about his time as a mail carrier in Blacksburg, Virginia during COVID. I picked this up on a whim and I absolutely loved it. I listened to it also on audio, and the author ends up reading it to you. Being a mail carrier is a lot of work, and I did not expect that, but he just shared how he went from working in the corporate world to working as a mail carrier and what that entailed. Blacksburg, Virginia is in Appalachia. You're also on a lot of back roads. You're out in basically the country, like you're in the middle of nowhere at times. And so he just shared his whole experience with that and what that was actually like, which I just found so fascinating. I find stories like that so interesting. Like I love learning about like other people's jobs and what that looks like, and just like the adventures that they get to experience in their jobs. And man, there were some adventures in this one. So if you're looking for a really good nonfiction book, then I would definitely recommend picking this one up. It was very entertaining. He just did a really good job keeping your attention with the writing. It's a book that I think about often, and it's a book I recommend all the time to people. My fifth book of my 5-star reads this year is Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. This book was also super entertaining and also just super crazy. Like I didn't know what I was really getting into. Basically, Lula Dean is, think like head of like an HOA or like head of Neighborhood Watch. Like she just has something up her butt, and she decides to start a little free library, but it's specifically like Southern etiquette for girls, how to bake cakes properly. She doesn't want any kind of like controversial books or books that are relevant to other people, even though they might not be something that she believes in. Basically, the premise is somebody decides to sneak in banned books into her little library, but they cover them with the dust cover. So you might think that you're reading a book on etiquette, but you're actually reading 1984. Or you might think that you're reading a book about cake decorating, and you're actually reading like The Hunger Games or To Kill a Mockingbird, or just like some kind of banned book. Those banned books end up like connecting with people in different parts of the town, and so you get to like follow their different perspectives and everything. It was just really good. I really enjoyed it. Banned books is like something I'm really passionate about, and like the fact that we should not be censoring information, we should not be banning books. So I just think that like it was just a really well done book, and I really enjoyed it. I also gave 5 stars to The Black Witch by Lori Forrest. I think I've talked about it on here before, but if I haven't, basically The Black Witch follows our main character, who is considered a Gardnerian. Basically, Gardnerians in this world are like the chosen ones of the world that they're in. They're blessed by the Ancient One, and anybody who is not Gardnerian is evil. And then she goes off to college and she finds out that these people actually aren't evil. Along with that, she's the daughter of the most powerful mage in all the land. She has no powers, but everybody's expecting her to have powers. Oh yeah, and she's supposed to be getting into an arranged marriage called wand fasting, but she doesn't want to do that until she finishes school, because that's what her uncle told her that she could do. But her aunt is basically making her life a living, you know what, will not give her the comfortability of a nice room at university, any of these things, until she gets wand fasted. There's a lot of things happening in that book. It's YA, but honestly, it was so good. It covers issues of systemic racism. It covers her almost like deconstructing and reconstructing her her belief system and also deciding like what is actually right versus what I've been taught that is right. I just really, really enjoyed it and I cannot recommend it enough to people. It's also a 5-book series and it's completely completed to my knowledge. I haven't continued on with the series just yet, but I am planning on it once I finish up the books that I'm reading. I also gave 5 stars to The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. I'm not going to say very much about this because I have talked about this. If you have not read this book, you need to read this book. It's categorized as a military romance. I don't think I would say that's a military romance, but just know that you should definitely pick up this book. I was absolutely wrecked. I cannot say much about it. I cannot say much about it at all, but just know I do not really love Rebecca Yarros' writing, but I really did love this and I probably will reread it again in the future. That's all I'm going to say about it. I also gave 5 stars to House of Sky and Breath. This is the 2nd book in the Crescent City trilogy. I also can't really say too much about this book because it's literally the 2nd book in a series. Out of all 3 of those books, it was my absolute favorite. I loved it so much. If you have read the 1st book and you're not really sure if you should continue on, just go ahead and continue on. The world makes so much more sense because you have context. Like that 450 pages of world building in the 1st book was worth it because now you actually have context. The last book that I've given 5 stars to in 2026 thus far is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This follows a woman in the 1980s who got accepted into the women's space program at NASA, and it's her story of going into space but also her story of finding love for the first time as a woman who loves women. So it's her story of discovering her sexual identity and discovering like who she's interested in, along with figuring out who she is as an astronaut and as a scientist and as a woman in a very male dominated field. I adored this story. I thought it was so good. It was so sweet. And I loved that space was mentioned, but it wasn't the entire story because that gives me anxiety. Space gives me anxiety. So I thought that she did a really good job balancing it along with all the research that she did about the book. It was just phenomenal. If you haven't picked it up, you totally should. All right, that's everything that I have for you guys today. If you've read any of these books, please let me know. I would also love to know what your 5-star books of the year have been so far. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you never miss when I post, and I will see you guys later. Bye.